consciousness and death.
Question. Far from being some kind of eternal awareness, this presence will vanish when the organism dies?
There are a couple of problems with this. First of all, it is stated as factual, but this is a claim not based on direct evidence at all. To verify it, you would need to bodily expire, and then show in direct experience the absence of your innate presence. This you cannot do, therefore you cannot assert this experience as factual in the absence of sufficient proof. My main point here is simply to highlight that, far from being a certain fact, this is actually a claim delivered without sufficient evidence. So it gets down to, my claim is truer than yours, because I say so. Therefore, you need to go back to the drawing board on this particular issue. This reminds me of a statement made recently by someone to the effect that when a relative passed away, obviously there was no presence awareness present any longer. This proof was offered with a note of triumph, as if it had refuted all the non-duality pointers. But this was blatantly overlooking the fact that the actual principle of her own presence and awareness had not gone anywhere at all and had not been denied or contradicted in the slightest. The refutation could not have been delivered outside of the presence of being awareness, which was still present and beyond doubt. Nothing had been refuted at all. All that happened was the questioner was looking outward at a bodily form, and not seeing any evidence of life or functioning in that body, assumed that being was absent. It is a matter of mixing up appearances with what is being pointed to as being awareness, and assuming that the coming and going of appearances determines the fate of the greater context in which they appear. The pointing out of the obvious transiency of appearances, and then making a claim that one's essential being is thereby transient, is not a clear or proved case at all. Again, you would have to physically die to prove it. That being somewhat impractical, one will need to take a different course. This highlights why it can be useful to talk in terms of consciousness as a product or transient manifestation based on causes and conditions. In this regard, I agree with you that the manifestation of consciousness as an experience in duality is dependent on the body and has a beginning and end. This was a basic point made by Buddha, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and others. Even in our own experience, we can see or observe the coming and going of conscious experience, not as an assumption, but as a direct experience that needs no proof. So, in this sense, consciousness clearly comes and goes. I doubt that anyone can recall being conscious before the sperm and egg came together and formed the body endowed with breath, for example. When the body dies, the life or consciousness expressing in that body is finished. However, it would be a mistake to assume that consciousness, as used in this context, is necessarily the same as what is being pointed to as our abiding nature. Consciousness, in this sense, is conditional. It is an appearance like any other. But that may not be the whole story. To claim that it is very premature. More looking and investigation is called for before a definitive claim can be offered. It needs to be noted that all the while, and on direct evidence, your very existence, that in you which is cognizing even the fact of being conscious, is not being contradicted or refuted at all. This experience is not a hypothetical matter and is not a result of conceptual proofs or refutations. On the other hand, to speak of what will be after death is entirely provisional and speculative. This is the difference between non-conceptual experience and conceptual thought. Notice that the former is doubtless and evident, while the latter leads to doubt and potentially unverifiable claims.